Hello, you're watching Newsfeed's special episode on the Israel-Palestine conflict. We'll be analyzing the spread of misinformation and how social media has been used and abused since the first shots were fired. As soon as the first Hamas members breached Israel's iron wall, social media lit up with the news, with on-the-ground, first-person coverage of the unfolding conflict. In the golden age of social media, Palestinians now have a platform to get their story across, and in real time too. Before, their voices were rarely heard in the mainstream media, but in this day and age, social media gives everyone a say. Unfortunately, not everything posted online is fact. Sari reports on how misinformation can dramatically change global discourse.
A barrage of thousands of rockets and a simultaneous invasion signaling the start of what Hamas calls Operation Al-Aqsa Flood. Following the events on the ground, hundreds of photos and videos of violence flooded out of the region and onto social media. As the conflict raged on, a different kind of warfare was playing out in the virtual world, driven by volumes of fake news online.
There's always the fog of war. There's always disinformation from both sides actively trying to promote a narrative that is more effective for them, that they're doing better than they otherwise are, and that the other side is engaged in greater atrocities than they actually are. You see lots of that. Lots of immediately fake videos putting out of buildings that are being destroyed, people that are being killed, sort of people that are providing, sort of support for sort of kill all the Jews and kill all the Palestinians that actually came from previous conflicts, not from the present one. There's plenty of that. This time around, there's also so much more hatred.
The last few days saw old or entirely unrelated images, even video game footage, go viral, purporting to be of the current airstrikes on Gaza. No fancy image manipulation was needed for many of them, as a simple tweak of context was enough to fool many. Flares lit by Algerian football fans became explosions in Israel. Video of what seemingly a little girl who lost her parents in an Arabic-speaking country turned into an Israeli hostage in Gaza. Some outlets even went as far as to confidently claim monstrous acts, all for the shock value.
So right now, quoting an Israeli soldier who's apparently just come out of fighting isn't exactly the most unbiased source to put so many stories on. And Sky News' international affairs editor said the story about babies being beheaded in Kfar Aza in Israel is based on one live report from one Israeli reporter and has not been corroborated by officials, but it has been reported as fact around the world by experienced journalists who should know better.
While the sources of these viral falsehoods can be anyone, it's important to note that those deliberately choosing to muddy the waters do so by using the algorithms to their advantage.
When you're in an environment that you can no longer know what is truth, what is real information, it is really hard to maintain a society that is human. When you have people that are saying that all Israelis are X and all Palestinians are Y, and that is where much of social media, a strong majority of social media is there right now. You cannot have dialogue, you cannot have solutions, and you can very easily tilt into war, into radicalism, into fascism.
These instances are reminders that our evolving digital landscapes provides fresh challenges to determine what's true and what isn't. This fight against false and misleading information is nothing new, but it still needs everyone's watchful eyes and critical thinking to ensure a more informed world.
One platform where you can see algorithmic misinformation is X. The site formerly known as Twitter has changed a lot under owner Elon Musk. Once the go-to platform for following any discussion in real time, X is now rife with disinformation. Rather than showing fact-checked, verified information, users see the posts of blue-check accounts at the top of their feeds, accounts anyone can buy for $8 a month. The platform also sacked its content moderation teams and relies solely on community notes for moderation. While striving for a free speech everything app, X has lost its credibility. It's no surprise the EU is concerned about its mishandling of hate speech deemed illegal content under the bloc's new Digital Services Act. Responding to the bloc, ex-CEO Linda Yaccarino said its deleted content shut down Hamas-affiliated accounts and added notes to posts to provide more context. Yet, researchers and open-source intelligence experts agree that this conflict has been one of the most challenging to cover. Mona Shtaya is an advocacy and digital communication expert. She joins us now from Ramallah. Now, Mona, we're seeing an alarming amount of disinformation and misinformation online. What's fueling this and who can be to blame? Is it the users or is it social media platforms?
Thanks for your question, Natasha. Of course, we should firstly blame social media platforms who are not investing enough resources to safeguard their users and their platforms from spreading disinformation, incitement, hate speech, violent speech that is basically leading to real-world harm against not only Palestinians but also other people in global majority countries. This is not the first time that we are observing such digital threats against vulnerable communities in the world. And even like in the Palestinian-Israeli context, this is not the first time. And we've been trying to grab social media platforms' attention to invest more in safeguarding guarding their users in our region for years. Even like in May events in 2021, we've highlighted that there are certain digital threats that we are challenging Palestinians on the social media platforms. And there were human rights due diligence that was conducted by an independent organization called BSR that confirmed that, for example, Meta's content moderation policies are biased against Palestinians. And this bias is basically denying Palestinians of the right to political participation, free speech, gathering and assembly, as well as their right to non-discrimination. And we were advocating for them to work on the recommendations. So far, they were telling us that they are working on improving their platforms. However, the current situation is showing us that social media platforms are not ready in such a crisis, and even their platforms are also censoring Palestinian voices, and this has been like happening for so long now. So we can see how not investing enough resources is affecting people in such sensitive times.
What is your assessment? Why are we seeing the suppression of Palestinian voices online? Is it a coordinated effort?
Well, technology is never neutral or objective. It reflects the global equity crisis, the global unfairness, bias, as well as injustice. Social media platforms' algorithms are also built based on data that they are usually used to enrich their or for their machine learning. And obviously, this data is not also neutral. As a result of that, we are seeing like this reflected a global injustice on the social media platforms whenever they are moderating.
Are we seeing evidence of Palestinian activists and reporters, from what you've been saying, being shadow banned online?
Yes, of course. We've seen cases where Palestinians, activists, and journalists who are shadow banned, they are sharing stories that after 6 hours or 7 hours only get a couple of views on the social media, on Instagram, basically. And this is not the first time happening. It happened before in events in 2021, and it's now happening again. And this is basically affecting the reachability and telling the story around the world.
I just have one last question very, very quickly. Are we seeing evidence of the Israeli government or Israeli government bots trying to enforce disinformation online? Very quickly.
Yeah, of course. We can see Israeli officials and politicians who are spreading disinformation on the platforms. The Israeli Prime Minister have shared previously at the beginning of this crisis AI-generated pictures to fabricate some news and to enrich their propaganda against Palestinians. And this basically has been widely spread without any kind of censorship from social media platforms, without being labeled as disinformation or anything like that. As a result of that, we can tell that there is a lack of accountability to social media platforms whenever it comes to spreading such disinformation and misleading news on the social media platforms.
Thank you, Mona, so much for those insights today on disinformation and misinformation.
Thank you for having me.
While misinformation refers to when someone unwittingly spreads false information, disinformation is the deliberate spread of fake news, and right now, it's being wielded as a weapon to discredit both sides in the conflict. On the digital battleground, headlines like this have been shared millions of times online, and most people don't take the time to fact-check. This story got even more traction after US President Joe Biden said he'd seen photographic evidence of beheadings, a claim that was later rolled back by the White House, which clarified that Biden had only been referring to news reports and had never seen any photographic evidence. Nonetheless, the claims continue to be shared online by pro-Israel accounts.
Biden needs to unequivocally retract the callous lies that he told, that he repeated to media when he looked into the cameras and said he saw pictures of beheaded babies. We're seeing a tremendous amount of blatant lies in the media, which are being retracted only in small bylines in mainstream media outlets. But by then, the damage is done.
This is what we call atrocity propaganda, making up the worst stories about someone who the media wants to demonize. And that way they can justify the murder, the bombings, the demolitions of homes, the seizures of land.
In terms of awareness on social media, Israel has the upper hand. They have funding to pay for marketing, branding, PR. They are able to pay to push propaganda through advertisements, through social media content, to pay influencers and celebrities to push their propaganda. Us Palestinians do not have the funding for all of that, but what we do have is numbers, massive numbers. Israel has around 9 million people. As Palestinians, globally, over 14 million of us. On top of the millions of non-Palestinians who support our cause, and more than 1.8 billion Muslims around the world, most of whom support Palestine.
The EU has given all social media platforms a warning about misinformation. The bloc emphasized the need to protect young users from violent extremist content and anything that could be life-threatening. TikTok didn't miss a beat after the warning. It immediately sprang into action, removing all content and accounts that broke the rules. What's more, it set up a dedicated command center, supercharges automated systems to spot graphic or violent content, and brought in additional moderators who are fluent in Arabic and Hebrew. In a departure from its typical content of choreographed dances and lip-syncing, TikTok has also emerged as a crucial platform to witness the Israeli siege of Gaza, offering real-time access to the escalating conflict. This shift has become vital at a time when journalists face obstacles in gaining access to the region. The platform is now brimming with discussions about the conflict, featuring news analysis, commentary from influencers, and most importantly, organic coverage from people actually living in the conflict.
Right now there are rocket sirens sounding in Tel Aviv. You can hear behind me intersections taking place right now, those booms in the distance. I can see off in the distance some of these rockets are landing in the sea, others being intercepted by Israel's missile defense system.
All of our tanks are out of water. We only get water every 15 to 20 days, hence the tanks. And if you're out of luck until the next refill.
Also in a place far away from the wind. This is the window. يعني literally the whole window is down. Literally we can't breathe. There is literally no view. You can't see anything.
The genuine emotion and passion conveyed through first-hand accounts like this are compelling more individuals to engage with news content on TikTok, increasing awareness and visibility. Currently, the hashtag Palestine has over 33.2 billion views on the app, while hashtag Israel has nearly 30 billion. The platform now serves as a worldwide hub where ordinary individuals can voice their opinions and political groups can vie for control of the narrative. And recent studies reinforce the app's impact, with young people being more likely to turn to TikTok for news than Google. And that's our show. If you're following the conflict on social media, be wary of your sources. Always, always, always fact check. One way is to follow TRT World on social media for round-the-clock coverage.